Exciting times in the stash shop today. I have this, which is the final batch of Polychromos pencils. So the stash shop is now officially a stockist of all 120 colours of the Faber-Castell Polychromos coloured pencils. If you are in colouring groups on social media, particularly for those of you in the UK, I would really appreciate it if you could spread the word that I am indeed selling these, and at a very competitive price as well. So if you're missing colours, or you're building up your set, or even if you just want to replace some that are worn down, head over to the stash shop and treat yourself to some bargain new Polychromos pencils and maybe some other goodies too. So hi everyone, and welcome back to the Colour Cave, where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem, and I'm really sorry that this has taken so long to get back to this. It is of course Intricate Ink Animals in Detail Volume 5 by Mr. Tim Jeffs, and we're going to head back to our little American Kestrel today. And we are literally going to pick up from where we left off. Exactly the same pencils. I wrote them on a post-it note just in case I forgot. So we are using the Castle Arts gold pencils. So that is the oil-based pencils. A quick rundown of the colours, just as a reminder. If you're looking to colour match, you're better to go back and watch the first video, because I actually show them on the swatch chart so that you can maybe match them up to a set of pencils that you have if you don't have the Castle Arts golds. So the colours are almond, cinnamon, terracotta light, sepia, indigo light, cool grey deep, and Venetian blue deep. So from this point, if I'm adding colours, I will show you them in the swatch book, and we'll also put them up on the screen for you to see as well. So we got this bottom tail section done up to here, and if you remember, I was swithering about what to do with these feathers here, and I ended up putting the blue over the top of them, which worked really, really well. So we just want to carry on. I do still have my reference photos here, and this is just to help me with colour placement, because obviously being an American Kestrel, chances are I've not seen one of these in real life. So I'm going to go for the wing section now. So this part here and then this brown part on the top. For the blue, if we just take a look at some of the reference photos, there are very, very blue areas on some of these birds. I don't know if I want to go that bright, but our bluiest blue that we've got is this middle one here, and that was the Venetian blue deep. So I want something a little bit lighter than that to maybe mix in with it and lift the colour, especially over this head area here, which is where it seems to be lightest. So I've gone for this colour here. This is primary blue, this one. So that's the kind of thing you're going for. I'll just zoom in a bit there and you can see there. This one next to it shows that this is more of a greenish blue than a violet blue. And this was ultramarine, just for reference, and the ultramarine in this set is fairly standard. So I would say that's quite a good comparison to gauge it against if you're trying to find something for yourself. Yes, so that is primary blue, which is 098 GP. All the pencils have GP after them. So I've already got a layer of the Venetian blue down. So I think then what we want to do is I'm going to take this primary blue. I'm not going to use it all over. I'm just going to pick out sections where I think it might be, it might just pop out a little bit. And then with the Venetian, I can go over the top of that to mute it down. If I feel it's too blue, then we can always do that. But I'll use this here, and I'm just going to build up this layer in at the this feather line here, and maybe down the bottom here too, where we're really tucked in, like we're proper tucked. So let's do that. And I'll just switch back to this primary blue now. Let's get a little bit braver with this. Let's go for it. It'll be fun. Again, the trick is if you want to build up layers, don't press hard. Look where I'm holding my pencil. I'm all the way back here, and that's to stop me. It physically prevents me from pressing really, really hard, because you just can't do it. The trick is, if you're a newer pencil user, and make that sound like nobody used pencils as kids, that's not what I mean. I mean in this context, as an adult colourist, it might take you a wee while to build up your pencil control, i.e. to make sure you keep in the lines, because obviously you don't have a lot of control. That's the downside to it, but you pick it up fairly quick. I say, thankfully a pencil is not a foreign implement to most of us. Most of us did colour as kids at some point. It's just a wee bit of practice, that's all you need. That is all you need. Yeah, I kind of like that. It's a really nice rich colour there. I've got a very sore nose today. It is extremely cold here. We're just coming into a cold snap. We're due snow at the end of the week, so it's -4 Celsius this morning. Now, bearing in mind that a week and a half ago we were up at +11, it's kind of a bit different. But I have got a cold sore, and it's up my nostril. This happens from time to time, and it's usually the end of February, beginning of March, when we get some really, like, the first really strong sunlight of the new year. That brings them out. The UV light brings them out, but see, unfortunately it's up my nose. So that, teamed with having a runny nose, because when you go outside it's cold, my nose isn't in very good shape, and it's actually quite painful. I see the difference is there. I was trying to explain this to Mr. Jem, because he's never had a cold sore, and we're very careful to make sure that, you know, we don't share towels or anything, because I would hate to give him, because once you've got the cold sore virus, the herpes simplex, you've got it for life. So I really don't want to do that to him. I was trying to explain to him that I don't like it. I never like having a cold sore. I prefer having a cold sore up my nose, because you can't see it, but they're much more tender. You know, they're not painful, but they're very, very tender, and you're very aware that they're there, just because it's obviously a very delicate bit of tissue. When you get one on your face, they tend to be not quite as painful, but obviously very visible, and they get in the way if you get one on your lips. See, when you're trying to eat, what a nightmare. For any of you that suffer with cold sores, you have my deepest sympathies. I wonder if anyone else gets them in strange places. I used to work with a lady, and she used to get them in her eye, and apparently they're really dangerous if you get them in your eyes. I've never heard of anyone getting a cold sore in their eye until that point, and it's absolutely terrifying. I'm not entirely convinced with the depth here. I like the colour. I think we've got a good balance between the greyish blue and the lighter primary blue, but I do want a bit more depth. So I'm going to grab the indigo light here, which is ironic because it's not light at all. And I just want to build up a little bit more of this. Again, I really want to, like, sort of accentuate this overlap without it looking like I've actually drawn a line though, which that's what that looks like up there. It's just the way I've caught the spots there. Okay, I think I'm going to go back with the primary blue actually. And we'll maybe use a little bit of the indigo in here, because again, this is all tucked in. So you see, I'm trying to accentuate the overlap there. I'll zoom in a little bit for you there, you'll be able to see that a wee bit better. Because there's lots of folds here. Tim's picked some of these out beautifully. There we go. Okay, I'm a little bit happier with that. Good stuff. So while we're still on the blue theme, we'll head up to the head. It's actually really cute. I don't fancy having a go with that beak right enough, but he's super cute. Okay, so when we think about the head, again, there's varying colours. Some of them are very blue, that, you know, when I'm talking about looking at reference images, some of them are very blue and some of them are much more of a greyish blue. So I think we're probably just going to take advantage of that and use a little bit of artistic licence. So at the crown here, you know, at the peak of the blue part, I'm going to use this primary blue, which is this bright blue that we used down this side here. I think that would be nice. And we'll blend that into a much more greyish blue round the top of this eyebrow area. I think that's a plan. And I'm using a flicking motion here. I don't have a really sharp pencil, but I do have a point. So I'm not going absolutely crazy. I will have to sharpen up my Venetian Blue Deep. That's too blunt for what we want it for. Okay, better. See, these birds have the tiniest sliver of white. It's like just a little white eyebrow, and I'm trying to... There it is there. Like, if we fill in the rest of this and darken down underneath, that's really going to pop out and it's going to look so cute. And down here, this section that joins like along the side of the beak, that is a mixture of this sort of grey downy feather and a tiny little bit of white, which just kind of like goes into these wayward tufts. They're so cute. So I want to put a little bit in there, but again, not too much. And then we have to kind of blend this out, because this blue just sort of blends in with the darker patch here. So we're going to have to get this bit at the back darkened down so that it does blend in a little bit better. So I think we maybe have to go back to the cool grey deep. Again, I'm going to give this a wee bit of a sharpen. I just want a bit of a better point. Doesn't have to be a super point. And just to show you what I mean, it's like it's too rounded at the end, because we do want to try and keep a little bit of texture, because that's half the oh my goodness, that's half the fun of having pencils, isn't it? Is being able to use texture. Yeah, so this is the cool grey deep. So I'm going to try, cool grey deep? Yeah, the cool grey deep. And I want to try and introduce this gently and more heavily down to this area that Tim has left dark, because that's where the blending part really is. And, oh, I'm not mad at that. Oh, I think that's right, let's go back to the indigo light. See, I'm working backwards here. We're starting at the back of the head and we'll work towards the front, but that's okay. So I want to try and keep this dark. Somebody asked me the other day, and this is something I might have a chat to Tim about this. Someone asked me about the downloading Tim's colouring books from Etsy. One of the things that I really like about Tim's images is the ones that are on a dark background, and obviously if we print those off at home, that's a lot of dark ink, which is why I quite often work in these books, because I prefer the black background to the white background. If you want alternatives, black acrylic paint is really good. If you are printing off, if you're buying them and supporting Tim through Etsy, you can buy some really cheap black acrylic paint and use that for a background. Obviously, if you've got fur details like this, you have to take your time and use a really small brush, but that comes with practice as well. So there's a tip for you if you're like me and you like the black backgrounds and you want to colour in all of Tim's books. That is the best way to do it. Some people like to use a Posca pen, but I find it's a very expensive and time-consuming way. You're better just with a small brush and a bit of practice of black paint. Right, let's go back to this primary blue now. Blend that in. Okay, I'm kind of happy with that. I need to try and match up this other side though. So let's flick a little bit of that in there. I'm going to be about there. And then we'll grab that Venetian blue. We've got to assume that that little eyebrow curve might be in there somewhere as well. I think we'll just fill all that in. There's one of these Kestrels in the reference images and he's got a tiny little blue. It looks like a goatee. It's absolutely hilarious. It reminds me of Billy Connolly, the Scottish comedian. He always dyes his goatee like purple and stupid colours. That's what this little one reminds me of. I don't think I'm going to do this in the picture. I'm looking at some of their beaks as well. And some of them have got quite interesting colour variations on their beaks too. We'll get to that though, we will get to that. Okay, so let's work on these reds on the head as well. There's so much variation on how deep the colour is in these areas, it's crazy. So I've got the, I want quite a sharp point here, I've got the cinnamon pencil here. And I think I'm just going to stick with the cinnamon for this. And I just want to build this up. So I'm using flicking motions and I'm going in the direction that Tim has given us for the feathers, but I actually don't want to take away from that paler shade too much, so I'm going to leave that quite uneven, but again it's just to show texture more than anything else. And I'm going to do exactly the same down here as well. I'm just mimicking Tim's pencil strokes, or his ink strokes in this case. Obviously he's finished this in ink, just following his lead. So there's a darker patch here, so I'm going to make my strokes more concentrated in that area, and then I'm going to go to the terracotta light. And I'm going to start flicking in round about that. So that was our kind of more, I would say, call it the more orangey colour. See, there's so much variation. I have looked at more pictures since. There's so much variation in these. So you can really, you can go to town with this and really do whatever you please. Even if you're looking for a degree of sort of realism and sticking to the actual colours, which is what I like to do, you've still got loads of room for artistic licence. They're fairly varied, so you're not gonna go to town with your your terracotta pencil and then all of a sudden be like, well, that doesn't look right. Okay, it looks good. And then we're just fading this out here because that's going into this lighter coloured fur. I keep saying fur. Someone laughed at me in one of my other videos for saying fur. When I'm talking about fur, I mean like the little downy feathers, because they're super soft. You can see them really closely here. Look how tiny they are. They kind of remind me of snowflakes. Like super cute, super cute. Anyway, I digress. Well, the one thing that I forgot to do with the blues, which I've realised I've completely forgotten about, is this part like in the eye. Again, in some birds it's quite white, in others it's not. So I'm going to take the Venetian blue deep. Again, I need to sharpen up a wee bit here. Just a wee bit. And again, Tim has conveniently left us the bits that are dark and the bits that are light, so that's good. Because what we want to do there is get the contrast in so that that little white eyebrow really pops out. It just pings out, that's what we're after. And again, that's blending in with the dark part that we did a little bit of work on just a minute ago. Happy days. And again, maybe I want to add in, because if you remember I was flicking lines in here last time and I was like, oh, I like that. So really we're just kind of building on that. I would like a little bit of white left around the eye though, because it does look better. But look how much that white eyebrow's popping out now. Absolutely. Chef's kiss. Perfecto. Okay, so on to the main part of the wings. Ooh. And here I'm going to be sticking mostly with the cinnamon, possibly a little bit of the terracotta light. This is primarily going to be cinnamon. And it's interesting to try and figure out where to start. And weirdly, you can see where there's a fold here, where this wing is tucked behind this wing. And that is that little space in there is calling to me, and I don't know why. So again, the texture is all there. You can actually see the grain of the feathers, the direction they're going in. So that's what we're going to follow. So again, I'm going to use a little bit of artistic license here. I'm not going to keep everything exactly the same colour because that would be really boring. But we'll just work a section at a time. So I'll start up from the top of the neck here. We'll put that little bit of colour in there. And we'll work. There's a very defined line there as well, which is obviously the part of the start and the part of this wing. So we'll just use that as our go-to point. Let's start bringing this over. Okay, so I've also got my sepia pencil here, and that is what I'm going to use in this little crook down here. To get that nice tucked in feeling that I talk about so often. And then just back to this, oh that's the wrong one, back to the cinnamon for this wing here. Go down this side, so this one's tucked in behind here. Just put a little bit of colour down there as well. So this obviously is curved because the way the wing's tucked in. So I'm going to take this cinnamon and I'm just going to run a line right down the middle. So that would indicate the, not the cinnamon, the terracotta light. That'll indicate like the crest, so like the apex of the curve, if you will. I hope that makes sense. And then I'll just blend that out. I'll build up these layers a little bit. This is purely just to add interest to what's going on, because obviously in nature, these birds aren't all one flat colour. The same way as human hair isn't all one flat colour. Okay, so we've got this. This looks like a really dark area here, which is kind of weirding me out a bit, to be honest. I'm going to put a little bit of sepia along this edge here, but I'm not going to be too crazy about it. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to go over all of this now with the cinnamon and just build up the colour. I'm not pressing hard though, I'm just building up layers, building up layers, building up layers. So this doesn't look like much just now, the area where I've put the lightest colour in, but when I work on this area with an absence of that colour, that's when you'll notice the difference. So here is the cinnamon, again just covering the area here, coverage, coverage, coverage. And this is the sepia, which I'm going to add a bit more in terms of texture. So you can see there now that I'm building that up, there is a definite yellow hue here that you can't see in this section, and that was really the idea, is just to get that in there. So this section is definitively more red than orange, shall we say. So what we're really hoping is to get a similar sort of situation to we've got down here, and it's just to add a little bit more in terms of facets to this bird, because obviously they are multi-dimensional, they're not flat. So I'm going to carry on and more or less do the same thing on this side. You can see where the darker parts are. So in terms of putting in the terracotta light, which is the more yellowy orange colour, I'm going to put one down there. I'm trying to think of the structure of the bird, and that's a really bad idea. But I'm also going to put this down this top edge here. Get nice contrast with what's going on behind. But that is a naturally light area that has been left by Tim, so that would make sense. I actually think that some of these might have been blue or should have been blue. I'm not gonna deliberate over it now. I think especially these ones should have been blue, but we've already got colour down, so we'll go with it and we'll make it look good. It'll be fine. Again, section at a time here. So basically going from that highlighted wing area to where we were working before. Put a little bit over the top of the terracotta there. Forgive me for people that know actual bird anatomy names. These underneath feathers feathers. I will deal with them separately because I want them a little bit darker. So I'm just going to finish that line there. So that's almost a signpost to remind myself to deal with these afterwards. And we'll work on the ones that are above it first, because there's quite a lot going on here in terms of folds and where does everything go? How does it all fit together? It's like a really tall person trying to fold themselves up to get into a small car. It's like, how does all this fit together? Again, not being overly familiar with birds and not handling them compared to having a really, deep and detailed approach with other animals. So, for example, dogs and farm animals. And I know how cows get up and down when they want to lie down. I know what order the legs go in and stuff. Birds, not so much. Okay, so here you can see we've got a much darker patch. So that is Tim's signal to pick up your darker pencil, which in this case is our sepia. And I'm going to go really gently because I'm going to have to blend this in with the terracotta colour that we were using. Again, I preach this all the time. I sound a bit like a broken record. Just go easy because you can always build colour up. That's the beauty and the point of coloured pencils. If you go in too hard to begin with, it is very difficult to fix a boo-boo, and it's better to step back and be like, oh, that looks a bit washed out, that needs a bit more colour, than to step back and go, oh my god, I'm not going to be able to fix that, it's too dark or whatever. And that's one of the things I always say, coloured pencil isn't for everyone. You have to have patience. That's just that's the nature of the beast. So I'm going to put a little bit of sepia in at these neck hairs. They're not neck hairs, you know what I mean? Again, just to denote that this lighter fluff is indeed overlapping. There we go. Okay, so from what I've done there straight away, I want this darker in here. I want more sepia in there, so I can go back in and just add another layer. Better. So that's making that wing pop out a little bit more. I'm going to tackle this little dark bit here and then work away with the cinnamon just over the top of all of that there. Okay, so we've got some darker areas here as well, so I'm just going to pop in some sepia in some of these parts. So again, that gives me like areas partitioned off to work on. So I can start here and join up the sepia with the terracotta colour using the cinnamon. And again, and under this neck area. There we go. So you can see we're coming along nicely here. So I'm going to do exactly the same down here. I'm not doing anything different. So we'll speed this little part up because I would like to get this finished today. Okay, dokie, always looking handsome. Right, just for this little section in here, you've probably figured it out by now, but I'm going to be quite heavy on the sepia in these overlap sections. But those fingers, I never said fingers, what is wrong with me? These feathers, I don't know where I got fingers from. It's early in the morning, it's not even 8:30 yet. That might be something to do with it. I've had a cup of tea as well, halfway through my cup of tea. So I can't blame it on that. Fingers. Yeah, of course this Kestrel's got fingers on its back. That's perfectly normal. So I'm in here with the sepia and I'm just accentuating those overlap areas with that. And I'm just going to blend it out with the cinnamon. God, what's wrong with me? Oh, goodness sake. We all knew what I meant, didn't you? Oh, jeez. Cheesy peeps. So yeah, we get to blend this out now. Oh, goodness me. And we'll just finish this off around here. Again, I want to make that quite bold there because we've got nice contrast with these black and white feathers underneath. I think this part here looks quite odd. So I'm going to go back over that with the cinnamon. It's almost as if it's just sticking out a bit too much. There we go. That's better. This, on the other hand, I want it to stick out. Put a bit more on there, actually. Let's sort of terracotta. Oh, yeah. Okay, better. So now we've got this like underneath part here, and for the most part, I want to stick with the almond. I do want to take away the white of the paper apart from in this head area because those feathers are pure, white, as in Very much so. This part looks a little bit dirtier. We look more cream coloured. So I'm going to go keep the terracotta light to hand, but I'm going to use this like oh so gently, but mostly almond. And you can see again, some of these birds have got amazing markings on their chests. Look. So we really can't see much of that though, but I kind of want to give that idea. So I'm going to go back in with this almond. Now, if you remember, if you watched the first video, we did put a layer of this down initially. So I think what I want to do is like literally just like tickle the paper with the terracotta so that we can see the difference between this pure white and what is going to be the chest feathers. So there seems to be a very definite line there. Like I can see that line where that all joins on. And I am absolutely happy as long as it's taken away the white of the paper. I am happy to not do anything fancy. But can you see here where Tim's left these lines? So we can actually join this up. Although we're keeping it very faint, can go all the way across there with that terracotta light, which is this orangey colour that we've been using. And then just go over the top of it with the almond, which is just an off-white colour. It's just like a cream colour. And that blends that in together nicely. We're still keeping that nice stark whiteness of the head feathers. And we can come down here and work on this section here. These downy feathers at its bottom, they also seem to be very white as well, which is very common with birds to have white bum feathers. So we'll leave those white bum feathers alone. And I'm going to do exactly the same here. And I'm going to go round the parts that Tim's marked in that very dark colour, because again, if we look back at some of our reference images here, that's a thing. It's a thing, so let's make it a thing. So we do that there, and maybe a little bit lighter along there, and then we just go in with our almond colour here, and we can blend this all out. So this will depend on what type of pencils you're using, how hard you press, or whether you need to build up some layers. But there we go. It's so good. And those just disappear into that lovely white downy fluff at the bottom end, literally at the bottom end. So now we come to the feet. And again, depends on what you look at. Some of them have really orange feet and some of them have quite yellow feet. I am going to go more towards the orange, again, just for contrast. Okay, so we've got the brilliant yellow down as the top layer, and then I've put the marigold in here, just in an L shape, so I'm leaving the yellow as a highlight, and now I'm in here with this cadmium orange deep, and I'm kind of like filling in that gap in the middle. Now we are going to do a bit of work here with some of the pencils that we've used previously, but that's kind of your starting point there. So I'm going to do exactly the same on the other foot. This one's much more in shadow though, so we're going to have a lot more work to do here. And you can see the marigold isn't going down the same because Tim's obviously shaded that area. So that's proving that Tim's done a good job. Well done, Tim. Clap, clap. And then a little bit of that cadmium orange in there. But what I'm now going to do is I am going to jump to the light terracotta colour that we were using before, and I'm going to put that over the top in these darkest sections to mute down that cadmium orange. It is still there, it is still very visible, but it's just not as quite as in your face. And then if I use the marigold to blend that out and join it up with the other sections. And the same where the foot's actually coming out from the bottom of the belly, that's another good place to employ this terracotta light colour. I'll maybe beef up this brilliant yellow here. And then the marigold again. So yeah, use the cadmium sparingly, and you're going to be putting your terracotta over the top of it. And then this pencil that I have here, which I'm using very sparingly, is the Cool Grey Deep that we used way back at the beginning. So again, focusing more on these bottom sections where it's actually attached to the perch that it's sitting on. Especially with this foot, because it's kind of sitting there tucked in. And then grab my marigold again. Because the thing is with these kestrels, their feet are quite bright. You know, their feet actually do stand out compared to their underside. So we have to kind of honour that. But say you don't want it standing out to the point where it's like, does that look as if that belongs on that bird? And I think we're borderline with this. Because look at this little dude here. This little dude's got really orange feet. Like, they're way more orange than his markings, his plumage. Okay, so let's head on up now. If I zoom out, you can see that. So there we go. Yes, he does look as if he's got bright feet, but they're not ridiculous. We're going to do the same thing with the beak. And if you remember right at the start of the last video, I was super excited about this because they've got these little nostril holes as well, which are just freaking adorable. So most of the pictures, they have this yellow area here. So I'm gonna mark that in first. And that runs over the top of the nose. It runs over the top of their beak to the other side. And in that, they've got this little orange nose peeper holes. Like, they're just their nostrils. They're like this really orangey red colour, which is just amazing. It's like everything goes together, like you're so coordinated, even your beak matches your feathers. And there's places where this goes into like the terracotta colour, which is just amazing. Like, they're so pretty, these little birds. So I'm going to grab the terracotta light, because again, that yellow's really standing out. And I'm just going to sort of blend it and mute it a little bit. And then there's this gap. So I'm blending this out, these two colours together, because I do want this yellow bit to stand out, because I think it's super cute. We'll just make it a little bit less obvious on the surrounding area. And then the end of their beaks, a lot of them have this blue and grey colour coming back in. And Tim's actually done it here, because you can see where he's put the highlight in. So I'm going to go for it with the primary blue, trying to avoid that highlight there. So there we go, we've got our primary blue, little bit of that, and then I'm going to go into the grey that we've just been using on the feet, which is the Cold Grey Deep. I'll get a little bit of that in as well. And the same underneath here. Trying to leave those highlights. I'm really enjoying the way the primary blue is blending in with this grey colour, because it does make it quite muted. We've kept a nice highlight there. Job is a good one. Okay, look at his little face. That's come to life beautifully. The last thing that we need to do is put a little bit of colour in our perch here. Now, it's really up to you. I am going to go for like a really dark chocolate brown, and also like an earthy green colour, and it's just to give us some contrast from our bird. But it is really up to you what you decide to go for. So I've got here, I'll just show you on this little, oh no, wait a minute, I should have them in here. I'm going to go for, so I'm going to go with earth green, which is this sort of greenish brown colour here, and I'm also going to mix that in with a little bit of probably the burnt umber down here as well, just to give us, I say, that contrast that we're looking for. So talking again very quickly about texture, you can see here that Tim has got things going in this direction, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm starting off with this greenish colour, and I'm just going to put in various spots of this more greenish colour, the earth green, which is kind of almost a brownish colour, just saying. And then I'm going to take this burnt umber, and I'm going to use a scumbling motion, because I want coverage here. So just think of this as your first layer of pencil, because technically it is anyway. I'm not going to go over the green areas at this stage. I'm just going to put the burnt umber down next door to it. And this is one of these things as well, I don't feel like we need to do too much work here, just on the basis that this is not really the focus of the picture. So there's no point in agonising and deliberating over trying to get this perfect. Obviously you want it to look like it fits in with the picture, that's a given, but we don't need to spend too much time, and it's also why I've left it till last, because it's not really that important. So here again, really what I'm doing is I'm taking away the white of the paper. I kind of like the fact that Tim's left this the way he has though, because it looks as if there are contours and highlights. They're maybe just not 100% where I would want them to be. And I'm going to go back to the old faithful, the indigo, the grey. Cool, yes, the Cool Grey Deep. Where this little dude's got his claws in, that's going to be darker in there. So again, just a scumbling motion. But what I'm doing here is I'm trying to anchor the bird to the perch so that we can see that he is attached to it. I mean, we know he's attached to it because he's got his claws around it, but we really want to sort of capitalise on that. Again, Tim has left some shade in here anyway, so I'm just really going to accentuate that a little bit more. where he's grabbing on there. It's got a lot of dark colouring down here as well. So yeah, now I'm just going to jump between the 3 pencils and build up a little bit of colour just to make this look more finished. I'm not really doing anything specific, honestly. It's not that complicated and it's not that big a deal. So you can see I'm back to using this flicking motion, which goes in the direction that, that Tim has put his lines in. I'm just mimicking his lines. And say just jumping between the cool grey deep, which I'm using for areas I want to be very dark, and then the earth green for that little bit of interest, just to make it look a little bit richer. Let me pop that in there. And I'll maybe blend together some of this, the areas where I've put the cool grey in. There seems to be a light source coming from underneath as well, because Tim's left white parts there, which I find very interesting. Again, and honestly, not looking into it too much, because that's not why we're here. But... So you can see there I'm creating a much darker area in between the tail and that right foot, like that. I want that to be fairly dark in there. So alternating between the umber and the cool grey deep. There we go. And there's maybe this little bit of light catch in there, so I'm just leaving that as it is. And we'll build up a little bit more. Okay, I think I'm done. Again, I don't want to overwork that section. I think we'll just call it quits at that. So let's take a little zoom out now. And there we have it, everyone. This is our American Kestrel, and I hope that you feel like we've done it justice today. I have had such a good time. I love colouring Tim's images. It's a really stress-free and pleasant way to colour. Having such accurate and realistic artworks that have got grayscale already in there. It's one of the best colouring experiences you can have. It's like almost instant gratification. Anyway, I hope you like my colour choices and things today as well. I hope you've learned something out of it or just had a good time. If you have enjoyed this and you're not subscribed to the channel, I do have a separate playlist now that is just Tim's colouring. So for those of you that have come over from Tim's Facebook group, even if you don't want to subscribe, you can check out the playlist along the tabs at the top of the landing page for the Cave YouTube channel, and you can check out some of the other animals that we've tackled. So that is it for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for coming and hanging out, and I will see you on Sunday. Yes, 2 videos this week. I'll see you on Sunday back here in the cave for another video. Have a great day, everyone, and bye for now.